Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to this council meeting of Tuesday, 10th of December 2024 at the Euroa Conference Centre. I am Claire Hewitt-Kennedy, Mayor of Strathbogie Shire Council, and I will be chairing this evening's meeting. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the places we live, work and play. We recognise and respect the enduring relationship they have with their lands and waters, and we pay respect to the elders past, present and emerging. Today we are meeting on the lands of the Taungurung peoples of the Eastern Kulin Nation, whose sovereignty has never been ceded. The public meeting is being streamed live via our website, Council Meetings and Minutes, Strathbogie Shire, and made available for public access on our website along with the official minutes of this meeting. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It is also assumed that your consent is given to the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who accesses those recordings or minutes. Council considers that the recommendations contained in this agenda gives effect to the overarching governance principles stated in section 9 open bracket close bracket 2 of the Local Government Act 2020. These principles are numbered on 1 to 9 on page 2 of the agenda. If a meeting is open to members of the public or is being live streamed, voting or any matter may be by any method resolved by council that enables those in attendance and those watching a live stream broadcast to clearly see which way a council has voted at the time a vote is taken. In the absence of the council resolving an alternative method, voting on any matter is by a show of hands. We welcome the people in our public gallery and also those viewing this meeting through our live stream via our website. This meeting is being held in accordance with Strathbogie Shire's governance rules. If we have technical difficulties during today's meeting, which means we are unable to stream the proceedings to the gallery, we will continue with the meeting given the public gallery is open. If an officer has a conflict of interest in a matter, they will be asked to leave the meeting and no discussion on the matter will commence until we are sure they have done so. The person will then be contacted to rejoin the meeting after the matter has been considered and the vote counted. Are there any apologies or leaves of absence for tonight's meeting? No. Councillors, I will take all papers as being read. That being the case, are there any disclosures of conflicts of interest?
Yes, Mayor, I have a conflict of interest with item, get the number for you, 11, oh yes, next. Thank you. So thank you, Mayor. I have a conflict of interest with item 11.4.3, procurement delegation for recruiting agency chief executive officer recruitment. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Noted. Councillors, there are a number of the minutes decisions from previous meetings as detailed on page 6. Councillors, can I have a motion and can you state what your motion is?
Thanks, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy. I'd like to move the recommendation as the motion as printed on page 6 of our agenda this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Halsall. Does any councillor wish to speak to the motion? I declare the motion carried.
Do I?
I beg your pardon?
I said, can I? It doesn't matter.
Too late, sorry.
You might want to look up after you ask the question.
I know, did I not?
Yes, after the opposition, there was no indication, motion carried.
Oh, good.
All right, you get that right.
Did I get that wrong? Bear with me. This is my first official council meeting, so please bear with me.
Just for the sake of for correctness, Mayor, let's run it from the top again.
Okay.
Doesn't matter if we redo it.
We're going to redo.
I want to not do it.
We're going to redo agenda item number 7, confirmation of meetings decisions of previous meetings. Councillors, there are a number of the minutes decisions from previous meetings as detailed on page 6. Councillors, can I have a motion and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Binks.
Thanks, Mayor Ewart-Kennedy. I'd like to move the recommendation as the motion as is printed on page 6 of our business papers this evening.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Halsall. Does any councillor wish to speak to the motion?
I'd just like to note in the motion that,
Through,
yes, it's fine.
So the mover has the first choice to
Oh.
speak.
yeah. So thank you. Councillor Binks, as the mover, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor Ewart-Kennedy.
Any other councillors wish to speak?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall.
I'd just like to note that we're adopting flood studies from 2017, May 2007, and flood mapping intelligence from 2015, and that in due course those will need to be updated. They're very old.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. Any other councillors? We'll now take the vote. I beg your pardon. Sorry, Councillor Stevens.
That's all right, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I think maybe a point of clarification. The reason we're asked to speak or move this particular motion tonight is that there was an administrative error when the minutes were presented previously. There was a missing page. So what we're actually doing is just reconfirming what occurred from the previous meeting with the complete notes in front of us. Yep. And as for the matters that have been raised by Councillor Halsall, there may be opportunity into the future to address those. Yep. So this is an administrative procedure tonight. Yep. Thank you. Just for clarity.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. I'll now take the vote. All those in favour, by a show of hands, yes. I declare the motion carried. Moving to item 9, which is the
Petitions.
Beg your pardon. Item 8, petitions, of which there are none. Item 9, Mayor's report. Although I've been only the Mayor for a few weeks, it's been a fast and furious initiation, and I would like to share with some of you what I have been up to these past weeks. I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to serve as Mayor and would like to extend my thanks to our community, my fellow councillors and the entire organisation for this privilege. It was an honour to be elected as Mayor by my fellow councillors at the statutory meeting held on 19th of November. I acknowledge the trust and faith my colleagues have placed in me to lead over the next 12 months, and I'm committed to fulfilling this role with integrity, dedication and respect for the diverse voices in our community. The constant that my fellow councillors and I share is a desire to reconnect with our community and ensure our council is well and truly open for business. I would like to welcome and acknowledge our Municipal Monitor, Marg Allen, who has been working closely with us, providing guidance and support as we navigate our fabulous journey as councillors. Past weeks have been a blur of induction and mandatory training for councillors, everything from local government fundamentals to team building, budgets to briefings. The training has been provided by both internal and external facilitators and has often confirmed, clarified and occasionally confused our points of view coming in as new councillors. It has all been a very comprehensive but rewarding process that will continue well into the new year. And I would like to thank our interim CEO, Tim Tamlin, and his staff for their support and guidance throughout this process. On Friday, Deputy Mayor Scott Jeffrey and I attended the compulsory mayoral and deputy leadership program conducted by the Victorian Local Governance Association for mayors and deputy mayor. It was another full and interesting day and a great opportunity to network with other councillors from across Victoria, sharing experiences and building important networks. Strathbogie Shire Council again partnered with Respect Victoria through grant funding from Safe and Equal to support the 16 Days of Activism against Gender-Based Violence campaign with a community walk against family violence. On Saturday, the 7th of December, Councillor Binks and I joined the Nagambie Lake Parkrun group, walking from the Nagambie Lake foreshore, Blaney Lane area, finishing up at the Go Nagambie Lakeside Market for complimentary coffee and cake. This week, an activity supports Council's commitment to health and wellbeing through the Health and Wellbeing Action Plan and our Gender Equality Action Plan. Last week, I also attended the Helen Haynes MP Indi Local Government Roundtable, where I advocated for important community issues and advocacy priorities for the Strathbogie area. This included the need for greater financial support for our roads and infrastructure, reliable power and telecommunications, and greater financial sustainability for local councils. On Saturday evening, I was joined by Councillors Jeffrey and Stevens at the Tableland Community Christmas Party at Ruffy. The Christmas party is supported by Strathbogie Shire Council, and a big thanks to the community for hosting a truly delightful evening. As this is the last meeting before Christmas, I would like to wish all our communities across the Strathbogie Shire a very joyful and safe Christmas. I'm excited about the future of our beautiful region, and I look forward to catching up with you and hearing more about your aspirations of our community. I will now move to councillor reports. Before we move on, I would like to invite any councillor who would like to make a brief verbal report to the meeting. Councillor Binks, followed by Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy. I'd wish to congratulate Tablelands Community Centre in Ruffy, specifically the chair of the committee, Fiona Steele, for their effort in bringing the Strathbogie Shire Art Box to Ruffy for the months of October and November. They held 2 really successful exhibitions in Ruffy. In October, Tangarang artist Isabel Morphy-Walsh, a proud Nirumbalak woman, held her first solo exhibition on her ancestral country. And in November, the Art Box held an exhibition of Warburton-based wood sculptor Shlomit Moira. Both artists held workshops during their exhibition, with Isabel also sharing creation stories with Longwood Primary School students that then went on to weave koalas, lizards, emus and other birds for like 2 days of very successful workshops. In November, I joined with fellow councillors and a large cross-section of the Strathbogie Shire community at the Costa's Climate Ready Gardens Thriving Through Change event in the peppercorn paddock at Tabilk Winery in Nagambie. The event began with a caring and comprehensive welcome to country from Uncle Mick Harding, sharing the cultural significance of welcome ceremonies, just as Bunjil, a wedge-tailed eagle, flew overhead right on cue. The event was a timely reminder of the impacts of climate change on our community, hearing from Costa about how we can garden in a changing climate, learning from Uncle Shane Monk about the changes to country that October 2022 flood has brought, and the work of the Tangarang Land and Waters Council is doing to rehabilitate culturally significant landscapes in this region. And Tabilk Winery General Manager Joe Nash shared how the winery has recovered from those really stressful days of the actual flood, followed by an enormity of people power to clean up and reopen to the public. I also was really excited to attend the Violet Town Action Group AGM in November and hear the reports from VTAG and the many subcommittees it auspices, and get an overview of the incredible community spirit and outstanding collaboration and fundraising efforts achieved in the community in the past 12 months and what they have in store in the coming year. I won't tell you about all of them, but of particular note was the annual report from the Shadforth Reserve Committee, who have done a monumental amount of work and fundraising to rehabilitate a natural landscape and rescue a rundown building, which now has different community groups using it every day of the week, with multiple user groups on some of those days. As the Mayor mentioned, I joined her in the walk against gender-based violence at the Nagambie Park Run, and it was really great to see the engagement and participation of many community members from all ages in this important matter, which impacts all communities and requires a united response from the whole municipality. We know that volunteers are the backbone of our community, and my thanks go to all the community members who make Strathbogie Shire a vibrant and inclusive place to live, work, visit, relax and play. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last Thursday with Director Tingay, I attended the Golden Valley Regional Library Corporation's meeting and ended up being elected the Deputy Chair. But there is a significant development going on there whereby there's going to be a change of classification for the organisation from being a local government corporation covered by the Local Government Act 2020 to a non-profit corporate entity, which will not be covered by the Local Government Act. We have until 2030 to achieve this status according to the government's timeline. However, the corporation, the regional corporation in Shepparton wants to achieve it by June the 30th, ideally, but possibly with other delays, it may be later than that. What it means is that from the point of time in which we change our status, the corporation can change its boundaries. We can add members and we can lose members according to the corporate pressures or services we provide. One of the weaknesses, and I was actually in this chamber when the corporation was first set up many years ago, one of the weaknesses of the corporation is that it's always had too small customer base. It's always been a challenge. And there are moves afoot. We have a very capable CEO, very energetic, very dedicated and very innovative. And she's determined to secure the future of the corporation, and she has the full support of the board. And I think there, in times ahead, there will be change in that area. So we should be aware of that and the implications that may bring to this council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carlson. No more reports? Thank you very much. So we're moving on to item number 10, public questions. CEO Tamlin, are there any questions from the public this evening?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. We have 6 submitters with questions for presentation at tonight's meeting. I'll just go through those questions with the appropriate answers. Our first submitter is Mr. Rob French, who submitted a question in September 2024, and thank you for coming along tonight, Rob. Unfortunately, that was held over from the election period as questions weren't able to be tabled with council at that time. The question is, will the Shire rejoin the school crossing program and provide crossing supervisors for all schools in the Shire that used to receive this service? Will the Shire provide a school crossing supervisor for Nagambie Primary School, the only school in the former school crossing program without a crossing supervisor? And thank you for your question, Rob. Council will formally consider your correspondence tonight in item 11.2.2, and I'm unable to make any further comment in relation to your question as the matter is on tonight's agenda. Thank you. Submitter 2. Our second submission comes from Frank York, and nice to see you here tonight, Frank. The Euroa Business Chamber of Commerce owns a 40-foot shipping container full of Christmas decorations that are to be used to decorate Binney Street during Christmas. Will Council facilitate and assist the Chamber with installation of these decorations this year? And once again, thank you for your question. I understand that the Euroa Chamber of Commerce are in the process of installing the Christmas decorations in Binney Street, Euroa. I'm not aware of any involvement in council at this time, but can take that part on notice. Submitter 3. Our third lot of questions comes from Mr. Robin Weatherall, and nice to see you here tonight, Robin. First question, the Euroa livestock sales state-of-the-art truck wash appears not to have been commissioned in working order. Please may I receive an explanation of when the truck wash will be open? When and how much did the truck wash eventually cost the community? Thank you for the question, and I'm pleased to advise that the truck wash will be opened tomorrow. I understand in the second part of the question relating funding, we've done a little bit of work on this and gone back to look at the total costs. As I understand, the project was commenced in 2020, approximately 4 years ago. To respond fully to your question, I can advise that the total cost from 2020, including supporting works that were undertaken in addition to the awarded contract works for its construction, to be $838,331.43. The new state-of-the-art truck wash was made possible through council funding and the support from the Commonwealth Government's 2020 Drought Assistance Program, which contributed $165,000 to the facility. It's also important to note that the new truck wash was designed to enhance operational efficiency and environmental compliance. The truck wash represents an essential upgrade to local infrastructure, reinforcing Euroa's role as a hub for livestock transport, which supports the economic vitality of the town and more broadly of the region. The second question, would you please ask the Chief Executive Officer to explain to the community the circumstances of the last budget management by Administrator Peter Stevenson? It started with a surplus of approximately $6 million planned and ended with a deficit of about $6 million. leaving the community with an unexplained 12 million turnaround? Thank you for the question. This is predominantly explained by the timing of the payment of the Commonwealth Government and the federal assistance grants, which are administered through the Victorian Grants Commission. For the year 2023 to 24 financial year, Council was forecasting an operating surplus of $3.576 million. The final outcome was an operating deficit of $3.606 million. This was a negative variance of $7.182 million rather than $12 million. The details are shown on page 125 of Council's 2023 annual report in note 2.1.1 of Council's audited financial statements. Now moving to submitter 4, Helen Gwilliam from Avenel Active. Helen, thank you for coming tonight. Is Helen here?
No.
Helen's not here. All right. In accordance with our governance rules, if the submitter's not here, we no need to go through the question. Submitter 5, Tom Ma. Tom has 2 questions this evening. The first, ARTC and Shire of Strathbogie, what decision has been made for the Anderson Street crossing of the rail line? Thanks for the question, Tom. Should this question relate to the infrastructure solution required by the Inland Rail project to facilitate trains with double stacked carriages from Melbourne to Brisbane, the response is an underpass is the confirmed solution. I would encourage you to reach out directly to the ARTC, now called Inland Rail, to receive a direct project update. The second question relates to Chinaman's Bridge in Nagambie. At the ordinary council meeting held on Tuesday, the 22nd of November 2016, item 9.2.1, now being 8 years on, what decision has been made to date on the bridge and the costs to the ratepayers? Thank you again for the question. And at the council meeting held on the 18th of June 2024, in summary, Council endorsed the recommendation from the Chinaman's Bridge Nagambie Options Assessment Report undertaken by Extent Heritage and endorsed the final recommendation in section 11 of its report to demolish the Chinaman's Bridge structure, excluding the land-based abutments. With the direction from Council, a permit application has been submitted to Heritage Victoria to demolish the Chinaman's Bridge, the structure excluding the land-based abutments. To date, Council has incurred a cost of $103,889 relating to the heritage reports and permit application associated with Chinaman's Bridge. This expense has been funded through flood recovery funding, and to date there has been no direct cost to the ratepayers. Thank you. And our final question for tonight from Marie Ma, who is here tonight. Thank you, Marie. Rates. Paying rates in this Shire is a disgrace, and has been no improvement ever since the Shire from the amalgamation. Observations of the Shire is a very bad. Having to walk on the roads that we are to drive on to get to farm paddocks is safer. What are you going to do? So, Marie, in reference to your question, and thank you for your question, Council sets up its asset management plans and manages its road infrastructure depending on traffic volumes, service levels and intervention standards. And if those standards aren't being met, we then act on them to bring the road back to standard if it's related to road infrastructure or any infrastructure for that matter. So I would encourage you to bring to Council's attention any road hazards or defects or anything that you're experiencing, and you may lodge a request through our customer service team, which can also be done 24/7 online at any time of the day. So thank you for your question. And that concludes our questions for the night, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Sarah Tamlin. We now move to item 11. And the first of that is 11.11.1, Rural, Residential and Land Use Strategy and Urban Growth Strategy. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Frampton? No? Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is?
I'm happy to give you a motion, Mayor. I would like to move a motion that the recommendation on page 9 be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Hassel. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Carlson. Is the motion opposed, or does any councillor wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, go.
I'd like to speak to the motion, but she goes first.
Sorry, bear with me.
Seconded. The mover gets the right.
Right. So before Councillor Binks as the mover, you have the right of reply. Councillor Hassel.
Thank you, Mayor. I view this as a very important piece of strategic work, and I encourage residents and my fellow councillors to engage online, in person with planning team. Identifying rural, residential and urban growth strategy to support our growth is a fundamental and will support our aims to attract development, workers, families and expand our municipality.
Thank you. Councillor Hassel, does any councillor wish to speak against the motion? No. I'm unsure. Councillor Binks, does she get? You get to speak, don't you? That's the seconder. No, you're not the seconder. No, not the seconder. Councillor Carlson's the seconder.
Okay, sorry.
So, Councillor Carlson, would you like to speak to the motion, or do you reserve your right to reply?
No. It's been unfortunate now. We've had an information download of enormous proportions as a new councillor. I think we're into our 5th week. But this is an important component of what a council does. And it's absolutely necessary that it's achieved as soon as we can manage to achieve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Does any councillor wish to speak against the motion? And does Councillor Binks now get to respond if we don't have a...
I just wanted to speak to the motion.
And that's fine, isn't it? Yes. Please go ahead, Councillor Binks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Ewart-Kennedy. I just wanted to echo comments made by the fellow councillors. It's a really critical piece of work, and we hear a lot from community frustrated with the current planning opportunities, especially around the rural residential options in our shire. So I think this is yes, it's another ask of community to engage with some pretty hefty planning framework. And as Councillor Carson rightly said, there's a lot to take in it. But I do really encourage community to engage in this in the ways that are available, and the planning team are here to assist you understand it. And it's a really great sort of once in a 20-year opportunity to set that strategic direction around how our rural and residential areas expand. And excitingly, it will see us develop a urban growth strategy, which this council has never had before. So it's a big piece of work, and I just really encourage community to get involved and engage with it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very, very much, Councillor Binks. Councillors, I will now put the motion to a vote. I beg your pardon, sorry. Are there any more speakers? Councillor Stevens.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I'm really excited about this piece of work and I really hope the community come on board with this one. This is so important for the future of our Shire. We are changing. Our Shire is changing rapidly and planning and growth is extremely critical to having success in our Shire, but we want good planning and good growth. And this is one of the avenues available to us. And as has been mentioned, the previous documents, the Rural Residential Strategy is 2004, and the rural land use strategy is 2008. They're over 15 years old. We can't work on documents with that sort of age to them. And as well as the rural residential and land use strategy, that's one thing we're doing. So that's sort of the perimeters of the town, so to speak. And then you've got the urban growth strategy, which is more the heart of the towns. So what you want to do with it, what you want to see, this is the opportunity to speak to it. So please come on board with this one. And I really look forward to the results. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Are there any further councillors wishing to speak on the motion? No. On that basis, I will now put that motion to the vote. Those in favour, raise your hand. The motion is carried. Bear with me. We're moving to item 11.1.2, planning applications received and planning application determines 1st of October to 31st of October 2024. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Frampton? No? Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Jeffrey?
I put a motion that the recommendation on page 18 of the agenda is put forward, please. It's points 1 and 2.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Binks? Councillor Jeffrey, as the mover, would you like to speak to the motion?
Only to say that it's receiving the report and the number of applications received noted.
Thank you. Second, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Any objection? No. On that basis, I will put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, raise your hand. The motion is carried. We're moving to page 28, item 11.2.1, letter received from Euroa Australia Day Committee. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Frampton? Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Can I ask officers, are there avenues other than from council for this committee and for that matter any other Australia Day committee in Strathbogie Shire to access funds for their events? And if so, do we know if the committee has indeed accessed those fundings and if we have the information, if they were successful and to what amount? Thank you.
CEO.
Thank you, Mayor and Director Franklin. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. I'm aware that there was federal funding available through the National Australia Day Council for community events celebrating Australia Day on January 26. This funding was available for not-for-profit organisations or through an auspice agency. The funding for events in 2025 closed on the 11th of October 2024. I'm not aware if the group received funding from this source, and this was not detailed in their letter.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Are there any other councillors that wish to ask a question? No. On that basis, councillors, can I have a motion and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Holloway.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I move that Council, number 1, receive and note the letter dated 16 November 2024 from the Euroa Australia Day Committee 2025, requesting Council immediately reinstate Council's official support of Australia Day on January 26th. Number 2, authorize officers to prepare and present a report at the April 2025 Council meeting on options for council to undertake a review of council's policy position relating to events that celebrate Australia Day on January 26, to include engagement with the Strathbogie Shire community, affected community groups, and the Tungarong Land and Waters Council at a minimum. Number 3, following an expression of interest process, provide funding to Australia Day committees or their relevant auspice agency up to the value of $2,000 to support events held in the Strathbogie municipality that celebrate Australia Day on January 26, 2025. Number 4, authorize the Chief Executive Officer to award the approved funding to the relevant Australia Day committee or auspice agency following the review of their expressions of interest through a letter of financial agreement. Number 5, refer the costs associated with item 4 above to the mid-year budget review process for council's consideration. And number 6, support the Australia Day January 26, 2025 events through councillor representation should councillors choose to do so.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. Could I have a seconder for that motion, please? Councillor Halsall. Is there a motion? Any objections? I beg your pardon. Councillor Binks.
Yes.
Before then, I go back and say,
Mayor, am I able to ask some questions of clarification given this is introducing new information before the council?
just bear with me. I think that's correct. Yes, you can. I think we've got to go to the mover first and then the seconder, technically, haven't we? Okay. Councillor Holloway, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council finds itself in a position where, due to time constraints following the caretaker period and the election of new councillors, we are unable to address any question of policy changes with proper consultation in time for the 26 January 2025 Australia Day celebrations. However, for Council to commit to only consultation during all of calendar year 2025, in other words, definitive action only in time for the 2026 Australia Day celebrations, would not adequately address the current widespread community upset as exemplified in the letter from Mr. York and others. A full year of only consultation with no concrete action would be perceived by large portions of the community as inaction and essentially kicking the can down the road. This motion does propose extensive consultation during calendar year 2025 to potentially update Strathbogie Shire policy for 2026 and succeeding years, but it also includes concrete action that restores some measure of Strathbogie Shire partnership with community for the upcoming Australia Day 2025 celebrations next month. Importantly, it does so with no immediate affirmative policy changes. Rather, it authorizes the CEO and staff to run an expression of interest process to allocate funding to interested community groups, as well as empowering councillors to participate in official capacity should they so desire. Neither of these measures affects council's policies. They are both effectively removing procedural prohibitions only. Regarding the financial implications of this motion, it is projected to cost a maximum of $14,000 based on all Shire Australia Day celebrations organisers applying and all being awarded by the EOI process the maximum amount. Based on current full year revenue forecasts, this amount represents less than 0.04% of annual revenue, a truly infinitesimal amount. Without being flippant about our budget challenges, this amount is essentially a rounding error for annual spend and could easily be covered orders of magnitude over by any number of efficiencies gained elsewhere. Even renegotiating a term deposit held for just a slightly higher interest rate would cover this tiny expense. And in return, council reaps a massive reward. This measure would almost immediately go a long way to restoring residents' faith that their council intends to partner with them rather than stepping away from community engagement. For many people in our Shire, Australia Day celebrations were their main touch point with a council-funded event. Additionally, funding restores Council's participation in two critical channels of civic engagement, volunteer awards and new citizenship ceremonies. When Council stepped away after Australia Day 2023, the former was promised but has not eventuated in nearly 2 years, and the latter appears to have gone unmentioned and also has stopped. Speaking from my own family's perspective, my wife cherishes the memory of her new citizenship ceremony held in Longwood in 2018, awarded to her by Mayor Amanda McLaren. New Australian citizens who are residents of Strathbogie Shire have been denied this privilege for over a year now, and it is crucial we work to re-establish better engagement with our valued residents who came to our beautiful country seeking a better life. This motion, I believe, strikes the right balance between Council being deliberative and consultative regarding policy changes, while acting with immediacy where and how possible in response to widespread community upset, and also reaps copious rewards in terms of the Shire's human capital. I urge all councillors to vote in support of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holloway. As seconder, Councillor Halsall, do you wish to speak to the motion? Or reserve your right?
I do, Mayor. Thank you. It's my understanding that the former council had discussions regarding celebrations on January 26th, that a decision was made to leave the celebrations as is in 2023, that the Taungurung Land and Water Council released a statement that council was suspended and that the council organisation then decided to withdraw support from January 26 celebrations. So I fully support the engagement with the community to assess, and I think a decision was made actually not to further consult with the community by the former council, and it's for that reason that we ended up with a decision that seems to have caused so much unrest. And so I fully support Clark's motion to support this year, to provide funding support, to authorise the consultation, and to hope, I hope that the outcome from this is that not only do we support January 26, but also we introduce, based on feedback from the wider community, some Indigenous education as an element of January 26 celebrations, because to further reconciliation, I think that needs to be added to the table, and we should celebrate one history. And if we don't understand the history, then let's get on to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. We'll now go to questions. Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. I've just got one question. The amendment proposes an expression of interest process to fund Australia Day celebrations. I just want to understand, is there a funding avenue currently available if community groups wish to hold an event which marked the day with a ceremony aligned with the suggestions outlined in the attached in our papers, Taungurung Land and Waters Council, January 26 statement?
Through you, Sue.
Thank you, Mayor. Direct that to Director Frampton. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. The current Strathbogie Shire Council event grant guidelines don't preclude applications for funding for other events held on this date which do not celebrate January 26.
Thank you, CEO Dunman.
Thank you, Councillor Binks and Director Frampton. CEO. Are there any objections to the motion? Noted. Do you wish to speak on the matter?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kennedy. So I support points 1 and 2 of the motion you've put forward tonight, Councillor Holloway, and would welcome them to become adopted by Council. However, I have reservations about points 3, 4, 5 and 6 of the amended motion, given that our community hasn't been able to meaningfully engage with Council if this this motion before us is adopted. And I'd like to just foreshadow that I may request the Chair to separate the motion into separate parts so that it can be voted on separately. I am concerned that while the amendment responds to a view held in the community around Australia Day celebrations, the amendment makes no reference to the Taungurung Land and Waters Council's statement, nor does it hear from community who choose to mark the day in alternate ways or those who support the current policy position of Council. This motion deals with one side of the sentiment within the community relating to events held on January 26, but has not given consideration to other views held within our community. I see it as Council making a decision without being fully informed. The Tangarang Lands and Waters Council January 26 statement, which is included as an attachment in the report, specifically requests that partners and stakeholders frequently consider deeply the views of the Tangarang Nation and the actual need to continue celebrating a day which would continue to isolate and segregate the Tangarang people on their country. By creating a new funding stream for January 26 celebrations for January 2025, not only is Council ignoring the aforementioned request from a key stakeholder on the matter before us, but I argue is additionally pursuing a grant funding model that doesn't uphold the standards of transparency and financial responsibility when managing public money that is expected of a council in their delivery and execution of good governance practices. Whilst I acknowledge the desire to respond promptly with what could be described as an easy win for Council, I don't believe that the motion before us upholds our 7 principles as outlined under the Community Grants Policy and Guidelines. Further, I think the reactive and rushed nature of the motion exposes Council to significant risk from our community and stakeholders, especially in relation to our strong collaborative working relationship with the Tangarang Land and Waters Council, and undermines our commitments as outlined in our community engagement policy to meaningfully engage with our whole municipal community. Most significantly, I believe the motion fails to uphold the underpinning principles as agreed to by both parties in the Memorandum of Understanding between Tangarang Land and Waters Council and Strathbogie Shire Council. And for those reasons, I would be happy to support, as I mentioned, points 1 and 2, and I would request that the Mayor can separate the motion into parts.
Thank you, Councillor Vinks. Are there any other speakers on the motion? Councillor Carlson.
Yes. Just a few comments. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Holloway for such a comprehensive statement. This is not the end of the process, but only the beginning. The message being sent is this council believes in Australia Day, and I think this community does too. But during calendar 2025, we will find out. If we are wrong, we'll have to wear it. As for terms of policy, they will all be reviewed eventually. I think the message has to be, I think the statement has to be made that there's going to be change in this chamber and in this organisation. I think this community expects it, and I'm determined, and I think there's a majority of people in this chamber are determined to deliver it. And this is one small example of doing just that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Are there anyone else wishes to speak to the motion? Thank you very much. Councillor Halsall?
Yes.
Hang on. You seconded. Yeah, no, can't. Thank you. I knew I was heading in the right direction when Councillor Stevens.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I think both the previous, all the previous speakers have touched on very relevant points. I think I'd just like to focus on what's on the table tonight, and it's about Australia Day versus the conversation that may well take place into our future about the 26th of January. They are 2 different conversations, and the federal government has dictated at this stage that Australia Day is being acknowledged on the 26th of January. It's not for local government to interfere with state and federal positions. But in saying that, we have to be representative of our community, and this is very challenging because we are aware, and I think Councillor Binks has spoken to it quite well, that there are 2 sides to every story, and hopefully with what we're proposing here is moving forward in a positive way from what we've heard from our community through our campaigning sessions, that they would like this addressed sooner rather than later, but keeping a very open mind to what we may hear between now and April the 25th when this other report is going to come back to council. There are financial considerations here, and that's another thing that we will have to discuss. They will come into play in our mid-year budget discussions, which is February. And the other thing, we will be looking to expect that the groups that wish to hold events on this occasion will seek funding from other sources. We should not be the first place to come to. Ratepayers' money should not be the first place to come to. There is federal money available, and there will be an expectation that those avenues, alternate avenues of funding, will be explored initially, and if not, explanations as to why not. I don't know whether it gives any comfort or balance to what's before us, but Strathbogie Council has supported Indigenous First Nations events historically. That's through community grant funding up to amounts of $5,000, community strengthening grants up to $10,000, support for 27th of May Reconciliation Week and the first week of July NAIDOC Week. And they've also, they facilitate events in conjunction and partnership with Tangarong. And I'm hoping that we can take the positives of our past partnerships and bring them into discussion and play with what we're trying to achieve here as well. So I look forward to the feedback from the community, all the stakeholders that Councillor Hollingworth has. Holloway, this man here. I was on a roll. I was all right up till that point. Sorry about that. I look forward to the feedback we're going to get from this engagement we're going to undertake. And as Councillor Colson has said, this is not the end of it. This is the start of a process. So I look forward to what we get back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens. Are there anyone else wishes to speak? I think everyone, no? Okay.
I'm going to split it. Do you decide you're going to split item 1 and 2?
Respectfully, Councillor Binks, I'm
Mayor, just a procedural matter. Does Councillor Holloway get his right of reply?
He does. Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you for bearing with us. Councillor Holloway, would you like to have your right of reply?
No, I reserve my right.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah. Do you want to split them?
No. No. So thank you, Councillor Binks, for your request to split the motion, which I don't uphold. Right. On that basis, I would now like to put it to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, raise your hands. All those against, raise your hands. The motion is carried. Okay, thank you. We're moving to page 23. No, ignore that, page 40. Item 11.22, corresponding received regarding school crossing supervision at Goulburn Street, Nagambie. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Frampton via the CEO? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to move the recommendation as the motion, please. And the recommendation has 4 components to it that I'll quickly read out. The first one is that Council, number 1, receives and notes the correspondence dated the 4th of September 2024 from the Principal of Nagambie Primary School regarding the reinstatement of a school crossing supervisor at Goulburn Street, Nagambie. Point number 2, manage and provide school crossing supervision at Goulburn Street, Nagambie, starting from the start of Term 1, 29th of January 2025, until the end of Term 2, 2025, which is the 4th of July 2025. Point number 3, authorise officers to A, make the necessary arrangements to reinstate supervision at the Goulburn Street Nagambie School crossing, as this is the only crossing that is not currently supervised in Strathbogie Shire. That is, and it is a municipal road, as outlined in item 2 above. 3B is prepare a report to Council no later than May 2025 Ordinary Council meeting that provides options for the future management of the Goulburn Street School crossing, detailing current and future service levels, risks and associated costs. The final point being 4, refer the costs associated with item to the mid-year budget review process, which will be in February. And that is my motion, please.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Can I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Jeffrey. Any objections? Councillor Stevens, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I would like to thank the principal of the school for writing into the council and bringing this to our attention as the voice of his school community, his families and his students and beyond. We have heard loudly as we've been out there campaigning, or if you're connected to the community for other reasons, that this has been a serious concern for the community for an extended period of time. The previous council made a decision based on this because what happened was school crossing supervisors received part funding from the state government. And unfortunately, over time, that percentage of funding dropped back significantly. And of course, council were left holding the baby, so to speak. So there were financial considerations, no doubt, they took into play when they made their decision. It's another example of cost shifting that the state government are doing onto local government. Unfortunately, what occurred in that occasion was by stepping back from the process for all of the crossings, and there are 5 of them, which I will briefly mention. We've got Avenel Primary School, Euroa Primary School, Nagambie Primary School, St John's Primary School, Euroa, and St Joseph's Primary School, Nagambie. The Department of Transport and Planning took it upon themselves to continue to provide some sort of supervision to the crossings that they identified they had responsibility for because they were on roads that they managed. Unfortunately, the Nagambie Primary School sits on a road that is a municipal road, so therefore it's wholly and solely the responsibility of council. So that's why this is being dealt with separately to the other crossings. At the moment, they have supervisors in place. And if the community has any concerns about that, I'm sure they will advocate to us to review and discuss with the Department of Transport. Goulburn Street crossing, the one at Nagambie, is what's on the table tonight. There has been some work done, some minor mitigation done by the previous council to the roads and to some new signage. Fresh signage was put in place. The principal had been taking it upon himself to manage the crossing, which is not ideal because there are risks involved in that. But he felt that strongly that his students were at risk, that that's what he chose to do. That's not sustainable. It's not ideal. So this recommendation tonight is saying do away with that. We thank him very much indeed for his participation in this and his concern, but we need to do this more professionally and have control over the situation. So what we need to talk about, we will need to consider the ongoing management. We will need to consider the options for the future or future mitigation, what that might look like. It might be human, which is a person on the crossing, or it might be mechanical, or it might be a combination of both. We will seek reports and advice on this. We will look at the cost and the maintenance involved. We will look at the whole precinct. And I think this is important. It's not just about how many people walk across that crossing. It's about the whole precinct. It's about the parking. It's about the vehicular movements. It's about the pedestrian movements. It's about the road use. It's a major road that goes to the industrial area and big trucks come out of there. But most importantly also, we have to look at this not just for the use or the potential use now, but there is a growth element coming into play in Nagambie quite significantly. At the moment, the school has 160 students registered and they've just received, or not they, but there is a co-located kinder that's going to go on site and that's going to have another 33 kids to it. That's going to start at term 1 in 2026. So this is a changing environment and it has changed significantly since this decision was made by the previous council. So for all these reasons, we need to revisit this. We need to get hold of the Education Department's forward planning for the next 5 to 15 years and just see what is planned for the growth of Nagambie in this area. And we need to put in mitigations and safety measures, not just for now, but into the future as well. The costs, thank you. Thank you. The costs will have to be referred to the mid-year budget, which is in February. So there is more to be done on this, but at least there is an action that the community have asked us to do for the safety of our kids. And it will be starting next year with ongoing work to see how we can move this forward. So I recommend this motion to council for support, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Jeffrey, would you like to speak to the motion as the seconder?
No, I'll reserve my right. Thanks, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy.
Thank you very much. Is there no objections or any other speakers? No? I'm going to put that to the vote. All those in favour raise their hands. The motion is carried. I moved page 45, item 11.3.1, CN 24-25-10, Nagambie Foreshore Walk, old section deck replacement. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Frampton via the CEO? No. Councillors, could I have a motion, and can you state what your motion is?
Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy, happy to give you a motion. I wish to move motion on page 45 as is listed, that Council 1 receive and note the outcome of the tender assessment process for contract number 24/25-10, Nagambie Foreshore Walk deck replacement. Number 2, award the tender for contract number 24/25-10, Nagambie Foreshore Walk deck replacement lump sum to build, I think, Greenfields Proprietary Limited for a total amount of $631,974.38. Number 3, refer the additional cost of $17,389.75 to Council as part of the mid-year budget review process. Number 4, authorises officers to advise the unsuccessful tenderers. And number 5, authorise the interim chief executive officer to execute the contract by signing and affixing the common seal of the Strathbogie Shire Council.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. Can I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Jeffrey. Any objections? Councillor Halsall, as the mover, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, the boardwalk or the foreshore walk at Nagambie is a really important part of getting around the lake. Works were done prior, emergency works done locally, so it's nice that the council supported some local contractors to do the emergency work. I think that local contractor was, and I wrote it down, Bonza Repairs and Services of Nagambie. The tender itself is very large and probably outside the scope of a local Nagambie builder. So awarding the tender as has been done seems very appropriate to me.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. Councillor Jeffrey, would you like to speak on it or reserve your right?
Reserve my right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more speakers? Councillor Stevens, sorry.
It's okay, we're all getting second names tonight. Just very briefly, I think it's been spoken to very well by the previous councillor. I think it's just that this is really important to the people of Nagambie to have a safe boardwalk that fronts the lake. And unfortunately, they were heavily impacted by the floods. And it's fantastic that the funding has come through a grant, and unfortunately we just need to add a little bit more to complete this job to the standards that we require. So therefore I support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens. Any other speakers? No. On that basis, I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Moving to page 54, item 11.3.2, curbside collection policy. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay through the CEO? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Oh, sorry, Councillor Holloway. Are you doing the motion? Sorry, beg your pardon. Sorry.
Madam Mayor, I move that the recommendation as stated on page 54 is the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Jeffrey. Any objections? No. Councillor Holloway, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would, just briefly. The addition of the change to include a misbin escalation process is, I believe, an important amendment to the policy as it is currently written, because it introduces a customer-focused element to the policy, where the policy is not just about the operations, but actually gives the customer a written pathway to object if their bin is not collected. So I'm confident that the officers will draft a robust escalation process to make it a more customer-focused policy than it currently is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holloway. Councillor Jeffrey, would you like to speak or reserve your right?
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more speakers or objections? No. On that basis, I would now like to put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? Motion carried. Page 84, item 11.3.3, variation to contract number 20-21-12, environmental monitoring at Violent Town landfill. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for the officer? Through the CEO. No? Councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Carlson.
I move recommendation on page 84. Reading that, Councillor 1 authorise the Chief Executive Officer to...
Mike.
Yep. Well done. To approve further variations up to the value of $50,000 for CN 20-21/12 environmental monitoring Violent Town landfill, and to point to the additional expense referred to Council as part of its mid-year budget review process.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Binks. Thank you. Are there any objections? Councillor Carlson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, Mayor Ewart Kennedy, the EPA seems to have an endless ability to send out invoices of some description. And I'm just wondering if this site will be on our bus tour, I'm sure. I'm keen to see it. I mean, there must be gold bars buried in it somewhere. But nevertheless, it's an ongoing issue. But we have received qualifications from the engineering department that we're on top of this whole issue, but there are monitoring costs involved continuously. And really, I think I'd love to talk to the EPA and try and say to them, well, where's the end point? And I think I don't know how long it's been going on for, but it's got to be 15 years. Have to be. So that's all my comments to make. We don't have any choice in the matter. It's the law of the land and we have to comply.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. Councillor Binks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to add that I think one of the important risk considerations for council to consider is that if we don't approve this variation, we could not meet our legislative requirements. So I think that's probably, Councillor Carlson alluded to it, but yeah, we are legislated to manage this as it is a historic municipal tip, for want of a better word. It was the Violent Town tip. My first bite came from that tip. Yep. It's, it has provided for the community for many years, and in managing those really critical infrastructures, we know that waste is one of the major roles of a council. It's also that end of life cycle of a resource centre, or this isn't a transfer centre. It is the original landfill. So I think it's just really important to note that, yeah, it's unfortunate we have to fork out some more money for this monitoring process, but it's also really important to do that to ensure that we're meeting EPA standards, which are there for a reason. And I think it's important to uphold those as a member of, the government system. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Are there any objections? No one else would like to speak on the motion? Motion is carried. Page 140, put my glasses on, 104. Item 11.4.1, Municipal Monitors Appointment. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay through the CEO? No? Councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Holloway?
Move to adopt the recommendation printed on page 104 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Jeffrey. Any objections? Councillor Holloway, would you like to speak on the motion?
Yes, briefly, just to note that this is another legislated expense. We are adopting this purely because we have no choice in the matter. However, that being said, the municipal monitor so far has been an extremely valuable person to advise a new council. So I would like to just leave it at that. We are happy to pay this expense.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. Councillor Jeffrey, would you like to speak or reserve the right?
Reserve my right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Would anyone else, are there any objections? Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Halsall.
I just think it's been a really positive experience to have the monitor with us, particularly with so many people that are first-time councillors. And I actually think it's probably one of the critical steps that will put us on a very positive journey for the next 4 years. And I can say that I've thoroughly enjoyed the benefit of her learning. Well, money well spent.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. Anyone else wishes to speak? No? On that basis, I'm now going to put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, raise your hands. The motion is carried. Moving to page 114, item 11.42, determination of 2025 council meeting schedule. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay via the CEO? No? Councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Halsall.
I would like to move that the recommendation on page 114 be adopted as the motion. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. Can I have a second?
Do you want me to read it out on the basis that...
No.
No, okay.
No, it's not if you do. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Stevens. Any objections? Councillor Halsall, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, the community may be feel like the change in commencement time from 6 o'clock to 4 o'clock as a trial period may actually be limiting. It's not. It doesn't have any intent to limit their involvement, but more a safety concern for people travelling around, and a meeting close at, I think it's 10 o'clock. So that'll be brought forward. That's all I want to say.
Since
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Halsall. Councillor Stevens, I just had to remember who seconded, sorry. Would you like to speak to the, or reserve your right?
No, I'll speak. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I'd just like to draw the community's attention to this one in that we are proposing a bit of a change here, but I'd also like to say that it's a trial period. So if there are concerns about it, contact us, let us know. Positives and negatives, we would appreciate the feedback. But what's being proposed next year for January, February and March, we're going to work with the current meeting schedule and change from 6 p.m. to 4 p.m. as a trial. And that will go from April through to December. And as I said, it will then be reviewed. So be aware of it, please, and give us some feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Are there any objections? Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Holloway.
Just noting, and not to reiterate anything, the trial is for 4 p.m. That is occurring during the 3 summer months. And I would like to note that it was adopted as a trial for safety reasons for people not domiciled in Euroa traveling back during the hours of darkness to, places that could be infested with wildlife. As the community considers whether yeah, sorry. As the community considers whether they support this trial to become permanent, please consider that as we move into the winter months, the 4 p.m. start time would prevent even a lengthy council meeting from having most people traveling back in the dark.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. Are there any objections? Anyone else wishes to speak to the motion? On that basis, I'll now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Moving to page 116, and I'll wait for Tim to leave the room on this one. So we're on page 116 now, item 11.4.3, procurement delegation for recruiting agency, Chief Executive Officer recruitment. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay? No? Councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Jeffrey.
Thanks, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy. Could I move a motion, which is the recommendation on page 116, and the 2 points written there?
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Carson. Any objections? Councillor Jeffrey, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy. Obviously, one of our first points of business as a new council is to secure an appropriate permanent CEO for the organisation. And what this motion sets us about doing in short order is to recruit the recruitment agency, which will help us find the new CEO, secure the new CEO, and allow the Director of People and Governance delegation to do that. It's one of the most critical decisions I think we'll have in the immediate term, and very important to get this underway as soon as possible. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Carson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I concur completely with what Councillor Jeffries has said, and nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any objections? Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Stevens. Oh,
thank you. Just very quickly. As been stated, this is one of the most important decisions councillors will make. It's unfortunate the timing. You've got a new council coming in, and unfortunately we have an interim CEO with us. We don't have a full-time. So it's only the circumstances that have brought us to this. It's absolutely no reflection on the current CEO whatsoever. It's just the circumstances that his tenure is limited, and we have this challenge before us. So this is authorising us to fund and get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Binks, you wanted to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy. Just want to echo fellow councillors' comments, but I also just wanted to bring it to councillors and community's attention. This is the fifth recommendation in our papers tonight that talks about referring unbudgeted amounts to the council as part of our mid-year budget review process. And just a running tally, we're up to 100,000. So whilst 14,000 might seem insignificant, it does add up. And I just want to, alert the fact that we will be required to review the mid-year budget, and in that process, it's likely we will have to reduce or stop services to be able to meet this budget difference. So whilst there's no, we don't know if there's going to be any extra here, it is something that will need to be considered in our mid-year budget review process in February. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? No? No objections? On that basis, I will now put the motion to a vote. Those in favour? Motion is carried. We would like to bring Tim back in. Thank you. Page 120. Item 11.4.4. Confirmation of minutes, Audit and Risk Committee meeting 6th of September. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay through the CEO? Tingay, sorry. No? Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Holloway?
I move that the recommendation as printed on page 120 of the agenda be adopted as the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Jeffrey? Thank you. Are there any objections? Councillor Holloway, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffrey, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Thank you. No other objections? No one else wishes to speak to the motion? On that basis, I will now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, raise your hands. Motion is carried. Page 139, item 11.45, Audit and Risk Committee Charter 2024. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay through the CEO? Councillor Halsall.
Through you, CEO, I note that removal of public attendance at the meeting has been noted and moved. I would like to know how many people attended Audit and Risk and what do we hope to achieve by closing the meeting?
Over to you, CEO.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Halsall. I understand that the meeting was previously opened for a period of 12 months and no persons attended the meeting. And what do we hope to achieve by this? The Audit and Risk Committee is a place where Council often discusses sensitive risk information pertaining to the Council's operation, and it's not something that one would normally have open to the Council. So it's more best practice that the meeting then is closed to the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Sorry? Sorry?
That's just a question of
Now I'm going to go.
Right.
You've got to move in a second.
Okay, right. Yes, so that's what I thought I was doing. Sorry. Okay. So any other objections or questions? No. No one else wishes to speak?
We haven't moved. We haven't moved.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. I beg your pardon. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. You're absolutely right. I beg your pardon. Okay. I was going really well. Okay. Could I have, sorry, councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Holloway.
I move that the recommendation as detailed on page 139 of the agenda be adopted as the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Jeffrey. Thank you very much. Councillor, are there any objections? Councillor Holloway, do you wish to speak to the motion or reserve your right?
I'll just briefly say that having read this charter and having attended the Audit and Risk Committee meeting of several weeks ago, I am fully confident that this charter represents best practice for constituting and operating an Audit and Risk Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. Councillor Jeffrey, do you wish to speak to the motion or reserve your right?
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy. Following on from the question asked from Councillor Halsall, so my understanding of this was that the Audit and Risk Committee meetings were made available open to the public for a period of 12 months. During that time, no community member took up the option. My understanding is that choice came about because council's often criticised about not being transparent enough, and I think there's a real opportunity to have a conversation with our community about what does transparent mean to them, because this is, I guess, a demonstration of us trying to be more transparent and people not taking up that opportunity. So I think, you know, it's a little different from what we're talking about here, but I think that we need to understand what does transparent look like to our community so we can hopefully deliver that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Thank you. On that basis, there's no objections. On that basis, I will now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? Motion carried. Moving to page 158, item 11.46, council plan update. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay through the CEO? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Jeffrey.
Can I put forward the recommendation as a motion on page 158 of the agenda that council adopt the updated 21 to 25 council plan, year 4, actions 1st of July 2024 to 30th of June 25, and point 2, inform the community that the updated 21 to 25 council plan, year 4, actions 1st of July 24 to 30th of June 25 has been adopted through social and printed media with a revised document placed on council's website.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Can I please have a seconder? Councillor Binks. Are there any objections? Does any councillor wish to speak to the motion? No? Oh, sorry, Councillor
Move in a
Binks.
second. Do you want to?
I'm not sure who's going first. Councillor Jeffrey. Sorry, beg your pardon. Yep, sorry.
Thanks, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy. So this motion speaks to the remaining part of the existing council plan and adopting the last section of it whilst we go about updating our council plan, which is due by the end of June. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. As the seconder, Councillor Binks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy. Just to say it's an important community update for to keep our community informed as to where we're at with our current council plan. And I really encourage the community to engage with this, with the documentation as it is provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Are there any other councillors wishing to speak to the motion? No. On that basis, I'll now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, raise your hands. The motion is carried. Page 177, item 11.4.7, councillor expenses policy. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay through the CEO? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Halsall.
Thank you, Mayor. I move a motion on page 190 that the recommendation... Sorry, then I'm looking at the wrong document. I will.
Yeah, we need it.
Okay, sorry about that. So where we're at now is Councillor Carlson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, only that it's a normal annual review. The expense policy should be reviewed regularly, and it's nowhere near as generous as what it used to be. So that's unfortunate, but nevertheless, we'll just have to bear that.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Councillor Jeffrey, would you like to speak to the motion, or would you reserve your right?
I have the right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Binks.
Thanks, Mayor Hewitt Kennedy. I just want to note that there's been probably the most significant changes are around the proposed changes to the conference professional development expenses in the attached policy, and that previous limit of 1,500 per councillor has been removed. And the thinking behind that is around there is a budget that's set aside for councillors, and we can access that within the budget without having to come to council for a recommendation or a motion to support that training. So I guess it expedites councillor training, and I'm all for expedited councillor training. I think it's a really important element, and as we've all been learning in these past 5 weeks, there's a lot to take on and to understand. And so I look forward to councillors continuing their training in local government and being able to deliver really effective governance for our community. But I'd also like to reassure the community that we do keep a record of any councillor attendance at conferences and professional development opportunities, and that is recorded, reported on and shared with the community, which is a really important part of being transparent with our community and letting them know, A, how we're spending the public money, but also what are the benefits that the elected members are getting from that in terms of their professional development and conferences. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Stevens.
Thank you. Just very quickly, this is a change. I'll be interested to see how this goes. I'll be watching with interest. Hopefully councillors will take up opportunities available to them to go to a number of training sessions, because we have to keep up to date with matters that we're dealing with and processes and procedures and all the rest of it. And I've been to a number of these in the past, and I found them extremely beneficial, not only to myself to upskill me to perform my role, but also the networking opportunities that come with them. You come back with a lot of ideas. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can pick the brains of other successful councils with a number of things. So there is great value to them, but there's also great cost on occasion. And personally, I was in favour of the old system where there was an allocation to each councillor, because I felt it was more conducive to encouraging each councillor to step up and utilise the allowance available to them. But I appreciate some councillors are more interested in this than others. So I'll just go with the flow, and we can have another look at it in 12 months if we don't like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Anyone else wishes to speak to the motion? Councillors, I'll now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, raise your hands. Motion is carried. Page 190, item 11.4.8, revoke purchasing card policy. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay through the CEO? Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Hewitt Kennedy. I understand this policy was originally introduced to ensure transparency, as there had been an historic misuse of organisational purchasing cards. So I just wanted to understand, does moving it to a CEO directive reduce transparency, oversight and inadvertently increase risk to the organisation?
Thank you, Councillor Binks. CEO Tamlin.
Yeah. And thank you for your question, Councillor, and through you, the Mayor. Does this increase risk? No, it doesn't. It basically shifts a more of an operational policy to be managed under the CEO's authority. It actually makes it easier to amend it, enhance it if we need to going forward, but it will still have the same oversight as it did as it was if it was a council policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Tamlin. Councillor Housel, you wish to have a question?
I've just got a question. Oh, I just went black. My question is, when the card is used, if it's used inside the organisation and moderated by the CEO, does that fall within your delegation limit or their delegation limits, if that makes sense? I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
The card.
In essence, yes. It has to follow the delegations of expenditure, regardless of if it's a credit card or any other expenditure through a purchase order or quotations. It all follows our procurement process and the delegations. Thank you, Councillor.
Ultimately, it's still managed.
Thank you, Councillor Housel. Any other questions? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Housel?
Sure. I wish to move a motion on as the recommendation on page 190, as stated.
Thank you, Councillor Housel. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Binks? Thank you. Any objections? Councillor Housel, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Not this one.
Thank you very much. Councillor Binks, do you wish to speak to the motion or reserve your right? No, thank you. Councillors, I'll now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, raise your hands. Thank you. Carried. Page 194, item 11.4.9, S11A and S11B, instruments of appointment and authorisation. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay through the CEO? No? Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Jeffrey. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy. On page 194 of the meeting agenda, can I move the recommendation, which is stated there in 6 parts, please?
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Holloway. Thank you. Are there any objections? Councillor Jeffrey, do you wish to speak to the motion or reserve your right?
I wish to just note that this
you're right.
motion is regarding instruments of appointment and authorisation with regards to the Act, and it's largely administrative in nature.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Holloway, do you wish to speak to the motion or reserve your right?
Reserve my right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. Are there any objections? Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor
I'd just
Housel.
like purely to say this is administrative and so are the next number. Do you want to group them?
Thank you. Noted. Councillors, I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, raise your hands. The motion is carried. I'm moving to page 203, item 11.4.10, S18, Instrument of Subdelegation under the Environmental Protection Act 2014. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay through the CEO? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, please? And can you state what your motion is? Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy. Can I move a motion as written in the recommendation on page 203 of the agenda?
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Stevens. Thank you very much. Are there any objections? Councillor Binks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to say it's an important instrument of subdelegation. Otherwise, our time here would be a lot more and we'd be a lot more exhausted.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Councillor Stevens, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, it's just a mechanism to give the authorities and available to the people that need them to do their jobs, basically, and to do it for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No, on that basis, I'm going to put the motion to a vote. Those in favour, raise your hands. The motion is carried. Page 213 we're heading to. Item 11.4.11, Contracts, Works, Variation and Grants awarded under delegation 1st of October 2024 to 30th of November 2024. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay via the CEO? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy. I'd like to move a motion as is written in the recommendation on page 213 of our agenda this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Jeffries. Thank you. Are there any objections? No. Councillor Binks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Hewitt-Kennedy. I think this is just an important, talking of transparency, it's something I think we're all passionate about. This is an important report that comes to our council meeting, and it's about including those contracts, works, variations and grants awarded under delegation. And it's just, whilst it could be something the council chose not to do. I think that we do it is really great in providing that transparency to our community. And in particular, it's really great to see those quick response grants being used. That was a request of community a couple of years ago, and they seem to be working well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Binks. Councillor Jeffrey, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve your right?
Reserve my right, thanks.
Thank you very much. Are any other councillors to speak to the motion? No. On that basis, I will put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, raise your hands. Motion is carried. Page 233, item 11.4.14, Council Financial Report, September 2024. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay through the CEO? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Holloway.
Just to clarify, I believe it was page 222. But my motion is to adopt the recommendation as printed on page 222.
Thank you. You are correct. There's a typo in mine, so thank you. I should have looked at the screen. Thank you, Councillor Holloway. Councillor Jeffrey, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve your right?
That's second.
See, I've got off track. Sorry. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Jeffrey. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Councillor Jeffrey, thank you. Are there any objections? Would anyone like to speak to the motion?
Wondering if anybody else except Director Tingay, doesn't he work in this place?
We'll take that on notice. Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Now, see, Councillor Holloway.
As the mover.
As the mover. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, this is accepting a quarterly report for the months and the 3 months ending 30 September. So this motion is basically purely administrative in nature. I would like to note, however, that there were some concerns in that report, which will bear further investigation, not in terms of this report itself, but in terms of forward-looking financial projections for future quarters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. Councillor Jeffrey, do you wish to speak to the motion or reserve your right?
I'd just like to reiterate Councillor Holloway's commentary in that there will be a concerted effort by the incoming council to understand and interrogate the council financial situation and work with the CEO and staff to best understand that and be very transparent about that.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Are there any objections? Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? On that basis, I'll now put the motion to the vote. Motion to vote. Those in favour, raise your hands. Motion is carried. Now to page 233. Item 11.4.13, record of informal meetings of councillors, November 2024. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification for Director Tingay through the CEO? No. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, and can you state what your motion is? Councillor Halsall.
Sure. Mayor Kennedy, I wish to accept the recommendation on page 233 that council notes the record of informal meetings on councillors from the 1st of November to the 30th of November. And I would note that it's been lots of fun.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Stevens. Thank you. Are there any objections? Councillor Halsall, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I think I already did.
I think you already have. Thank you. Councillor Stevens, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I will. Thank you. I'd just like to bring this to the attention of the community that may look at these items or may be listening to us online. If you want to know what the councillors do, I think this is a good way of trying to find out what we do. It shows that we attend many meetings and it lists why we're attending those meetings and what we're doing. So it's a good insight as to how the councils operate and why.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Do we have any objections? Thank you. Anyone else wishes to speak to the motion? Councillor Binks.
Thank you, Mayor Ewart Kennedy. Just following on from Councillor Stevens' comments, I think, and again on the note of transparency, this is another great way that Council attempts to be transparent with our community as to what it is that we are doing. And as Councillor Stevens has mentioned there, the matters considered are all listed there, and so it gives the community a good insight into what we are doing, and you'll see that we've been pretty busy for the last 5 weeks. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Binks. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? No. On that basis, I'll now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, raise your hands. Motion is carried. Now move to item number 12. Just making sure I've got that right. Yes. Notice of motions, there are nil. Notices of rescission, there are nil. Urgent business, nil. Confidential business, nil. Next meeting. As per item 11.42 moved at this meeting, the next ordinary meeting of Strathbogie Shire Council is scheduled to be held on the 21st of January 2025 at the Euroa Community Conference Centre, commencing at 4 p.m. There being no further business, the meeting closed at 7:45 p.m. Thank you, everyone, and the live stream will now finish.